It's been 1 week since the Portland Regional Championships, and we're only 1 week away from the Charlotte Regional Championships. So I decided to take a look at the stats from the 3 biggest online tours over the past weekend. Each tournament had roughly 100 players, and I had a look at which Pokemon were having the most success on average against the top 10 Pokemon. Now, I did specifically pick 5 Pokemon for each of the top 10, and they weren't necessarily the 5 highest win rate Pokemon. I decided to take some of my own opinion into account here, since while Iron Bundle does have a very high win rate into Raging Bolt, I wouldn't say it's one of the 5 best Pokemon into it. Now, for anyone wondering what the top 10 Pokemon were, it was these 10 Pokemon here in particular. So we have Flutter, Chien-Pao, Incineroar, Ogerpon-Wellspring, Urshifu-Rapid Strike, Raging Bolt, Entei, Rillaboom, Tornadus, and Dragonite. I'm sure there really isn't any surprise here, aside of maybe D-Knight sneaking into the top 10. Now, in each event, these Pokemon did really kind of jump around. You know, for example, Flutter was the most used Pokemon in each of the events. I believe Chien-Pao and Ogerpon-Wellspring basically were, fighting for number 2. And from there on, it was really just kind of everyone else shuffling around, with really Tornadus kind of being the main Pokemon sticking around the bottom of the list, with D-Knight jumping up as high as maybe 6 or 7. And really everything else just kind of shuffling around. So starting us off here, we have the number 1 used Pokemon, which is Flutter. Now, the issue when you talk about a Pokemon like Flutter, being that it is the most used Pokemon, is this Pokemon being on roughly about 60% of teams. A lot of the time it does actually play against itself, therefore its win rates can kind of be a bit skewed. And because of that, Flutter definitely had the most different, Pokemon with, very good win rates into it. But I did, as I said, decided to take liberty, on myself and pick the 5 Pokemon that I think are really good. And we're going to kind of talk about why I do think they are really good into Flutter. So the first guy we have here is Urshifu Dark. Now, the reason really Urshifu Dark I think has such a great matchup into Flutter is simply because Terra Dark with choice, basically a choice item like Choice Band or Choice Scarf is very good into Flutter. It kind of forces out the Terra, and if you are Choice Scarf, it's a very easy U-turn into a potential, just picking up the KO later. And if they don't Terra, something like Terra Dark Wicked Blow is, more than enough to kill, especially if you are a Choice Banded set. Say, for example, you've got your own Whimsicott, they don't have, anything. Basically, your Flutter kind of pinned. It's forced to switch into something, and Urshifu can put out a lot of damage. Also, the choice, the Focus Sash set is also very, very good, because it does allow you to fire off something like a very strong Wicked Blow, and then essentially clean it up with a Sucker Punch later, right? Even though this Pokemon, obviously, in Flutter does really like the, the Fairy Terra, it really doesn't like taking Wicked Blows. I do believe that a Terra Dark Choice Banded set actually one-shots through Terra Fairy, which is very, very scary. The next one we're going to talk about here, though, is Volcarona. Now, the reason Volcarona I feel is very, very good into Flutter right now is, 1, it naturally resists the Fairy typing, which is obviously very good. And number 2, it also has a very, very solid, special defense stat with a pretty decent HP stat. And this is a Pokemon that really does love to just max out its HP stat here, and obviously run Quiver Dance, which I do think is really the main thing, Volcarona has going for it. This is a mon that its special defense stat is already pretty damn high, and it absolutely loves to click Quiver Dance. And as you can imagine here, after 1 Quiver Dance, you're going to absolutely just be bouncing Moonblast off you. And this mon also normally pairs up with something like Leftovers, or that's a Leaf Stone Scott, Leftovers, plus Giga Drain. So you're really not going to have any issues in terms of, recovering HP on this mon. And it essentially just hardwalls out Flutter and eventually after enough Quiver Dances, it can really start threatening, a potential one-shot with something like Flamethrower. Even Heat Wave can do a lot of damage too if you do opt for the spread move on it. The next one, though, is Hisuian Arcanine. Now, I do think the reason Hisuian Arcanine is really starting to pick up in usage is not only 1, because it has a fantastic matchup into Flutter but 2, it just has a really good matchup into a lot of Pokemon in general. And I do really think the Choice Band set against Flutter is fantastic. The main reason for that really is because things like Choice Banded Rock Slide, Choice Banded Flare Blitz can really just threaten one-shots on it. And of course, too, if they ever do end up opting for that Terra Fairy, you do have the option of something like the Choice Banded Extreme Speed. Now, I don't necessarily think the Choice Banded set is, the be-all end-all on Arcanine. I do feel like there are a couple other sets you can run that are pretty viable, but Flutter really doesn't really want to take on any of them anyway. Even if you are, say, a more defensive, bulky set, or even if it's something like Clear Amulet, Flutter really does not want to either Choice Banded Flare Blitz, or just a Flare Blitz in general, sorry. And it also can't really hit you back. Sure, your Shadow Balls deal a little bit of damage. This one's not, the greatest on the special end, but really what Flutter really thrives off of is, clicking that, Terra Fairy with the specs, maybe a special, attack booster, and just dealing massive damage. And Arcanine having a really good resist and the ability to one-shot it, I do think is very, very good. Now, piggybacking off our double fire here into a triple fire, and that is Heatran. Heatran is a mon that is slowly creeping back into the metagame. It has a very, very good matchup into a lot of the top Pokemon, and I'm sure we will talk about it again later on in the video. But essentially, this is a Pokemon that says, hey, Flutter do your worst. Click Terra Fairy, Specs, Moonblast, I don't care. I'm a 4x resist. I have a really high special defense stat. It's going to absolutely bounce off me. Oh, yeah, and then I can just threaten you with a, a Stab Flash Cannon that'll just potentially one-shot you. You can chip it down with Heat Wave. Heatran just has such a very good type matchup into Flutter and then again, fire types right now are really good. It does feel like a lot of teams, are even opting to run 2 fire types because of how good fire types are into Flutter And I think this one is honestly just incredibly good right now. And then the last one we're going to talk about into Flutter Mane here is actually one that is a bit of a surprise. Its usage has been quite low, but it is having very, very good success. And again, it's another one we'll touch on quite a few times today, and that is Galarian Zapdos. Now, you might be wondering, Scott, like, why is Galarian Zapdos in particular on the rise? Well, for one thing, this is one of the best choice scarf mons we have in the game, right? I've said it in a couple videos in the past, but really, when you have a look at a lot of the the choice scarf options right now, you're talking about things like Landorus, Landorus Therian form, for example. Even of course, what's his name? Why am I blanking on it? Urshifu as well as the other main one, right? Even things like Booster Energy on Iron Crown as well as a different, another option for this, right? And Zapdos is a mon that outspeeds them all. It has the fight, so it doesn't mind if it gets intimidated. And with Choice Scarf, it's just really fast and it hits really naturally hard. And it also has access to a Stab Brave Bird. Basically, a Choice Scarf Brave Bird will just always carry Flutter Manes. I've done the calcs. There is like almost no bulky Flutter Mane set that consistently lives this. And is like happy with the bulk it has to run. Galarian Zapdos is just a walking nuke. It threatens a one-shot. And, of course, when you pair it up with something, like, for example, you pair it up with your own fast fake out, you don't really care if they lead something like, Incin with Intimidate plus fake out into it, right? If you've got your own Rillaboom next to it, then it's like, hey, my fake out's faster than your fake out. I'm just going to pin that Flutter Mane slot, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Anyway, so moving over to Chien-Pao here, we have another one that we did just touch on, and that is the Hisuian Arcanine. So I will be pretty brief with it, as I did, obviously just explain it when it came to Flutter Mane. As I said, it threatens, a lot of damage onto Chien-Pao, right? Obviously, Rock Slide and Flare Blitz are both stab moves into it. Plus, it is also an Intimidate mon that is also really good into, its, Chien-Pao's main partner, which is D-Knight, right? This is a mon that naturally resists the extreme speeds. It obviously, drops the attacks out of the Chien-Pao and also threatens, very good, stab damage essentially with Rock Slide, making it a very, very good answer into the Power Knight cause. Now, moving on to the next one here, though, is a kind of similar, another fire type, funny enough, and that is obviously Gouging Fire here. Now, again, the main reason why Gouging Fire is really good into things like Chien-Pao, and of course its, main partner being D-Knight, is its, signature move, Burning Bulwark. Essentially, you can't Ice Spinner this thing, and you can't, Sacred Sword this thing, or you're gonna burn yourself. If Chien-Pao gets burnt, its game is done. Same with D-Knight. If you try to E-Speed this mon, and it Burning Bulwarks, your game is done. If you try to just attack it with anything, and it Burning Bulwarks, and it burns you, your game is done. This is a very, very good mon. Its natural physical bulk is very, very high, and it also really does deter things like Fake Out as well, making it a very, very good into, things like Chien-Pao. Now, this mon is another one that we did just touch on. It is the Galarian Zapdos. And again, this is a mon that its win rate is, it's honestly really good into a lot of these top threats. Galarian Zapdos is a mon we'll definitely talk about a couple times. As a matter of fact, I do think it is going to be spoken about on each of the next 5 Pokemon. I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler here. Again, its stab combo is great, right? You can obviously kind of force a Terra out of Chien-Pao, still hit it with a really powerful Brave Bird. Of course, you don't necessarily care about the Sucker Punches on the priority, and with a Choice Scarf, you're going to outspeed it, making this mon just really damn good, and you can always threaten to break its Sash or drop it down to its Sash. Now, moving on from this, though, I am going to just, actually, we'll skip the next one, and we'll come back to it in a second. So the next one I'm going to touch on is Primarina here. Primarina is a mon I've actually spoken about in the past. I did build a team around Primarina because I did feel like it was one of the best answers to the Power Knight core. Basically, the reason why Primarina is so good into Chien-Pao is because, Chien-Pao basically runs 3 moves, right? It runs an Ice Stab, whatever you want it to be. It runs Sacred Sword for coverage, and it runs Sucker Punch. You have a look at each of these moves, right? Ice Spinner is resisted by the Water type. Sacred Sword is resisted by a Fairy type, and Sucker Punch is resisted by a Fairy type, right? There is basically nothing Chien-Pao can hit Primarina with. Sure, its defenses are pretty damn low, but if you pair this mon up with, decent redirection, like, for example, like something like Rocky Helmet or Moongus, or even you run something like Terra Steel, which I do actually think is the best Terra for this mon. I've seen a lot of people running Terra Dragon, but I do think because of how good Dragonite is into Primarina, it really kind of fixes the matchup where, obviously Chien-Pao, D-Knight, and Entei like to play together. Entei and Chien-Pao do not want to take on Primarina, but the Dragonite is more than okay with it, and because of that, I do think Terra Steel is very, very good. But Primarina is without a doubt one of the best Pokemon we currently have into Chien-Pao, just because Chien-Pao really can't touch it. But anyway, moving on to that last little bit I was going to touch on here. I probably could have even just put T-Tar there, honestly. That was probably the way Tyranitar. Probably the way to look at it. But just in general, sand teams, right? Looking at, things like, of course, Lycanroc and, of course, a good friend Excadrill. Essentially, with the rock typing and the steel typing you get, so obviously T-Tar, Lycanroc are both rock types, and Excadrill, of course, is a steel type. These 3 mons basically all resist extreme speed. And, obviously Entei, who is like a very common partner with it as well, doesn't like taking on rock types, all of which, do, by the way, have access to Rock Slide, which Chien-Pao, D-Knight, and Entei are all weak to, right? So essentially, I think the Sand Core is very, very good into it. Not to mention, if you hit Chien-Pao once, it does obviously lose its Focus Sash. Because, you know, obviously when you've got Sandstream, you got that chip damage. Chien-Pao will just, you know, basically if you drop it to its Sash, it dies the same turn, thanks to, of course, you know, Sand Chip. And then another really cool thing too is Chien-Pao making its ally weaker with, you know, sort of Ruin. Especially too when, you know, you're firing up some really powerful stab rock slides, you know, even knockoffs. Of course, if you got, you know, something like you're an Excadrill on the board, you got, you know, Iron Head, high horsepower. There's a lot of damage into it. It's very, very good into Chien-Pao, and I do think rock typing in general is just very, very solid into the Power Knight cores right now. Next up is everyone's favorite Fire Cat Incineroar. And starting off things here, it's actually once again Zapdos. A very common thing you're probably about to see here is a very, very good ability into Incineroar, and that is Defiant. And there's basically one set in particular that Chopper Cross himself actually did kind of, you know, I guess make, you know, kind of popular at the Portland Regional, and that is a Defiant mon paired up with the item Covered Cloak. Now, this is something that has seen quite a bit of success actually on Zapdos. I do think it had a tournament run where it went 8-2, and essentially what Covered Cloak says is, hey, you can't fake me out, and if I go jolly max speed, I'm outspeeding, you know, a lot of mons, and if you pair this thing up, obviously, you know, with some speed control, all of a sudden it becomes really fast, and when you're clicking things like Stab Close Combat, Stab Brave Bird, and you can't have your attack stat reduced, all of a sudden you're firing off some ridiculously, you know, very, very powerful moves, right? This is a one that obviously I think wants to be paired with Tailwind or, you know, even Icy Wind speed control. But, you know, it really makes you think, think about bringing your Incin into Zapdos, because you're going to intimidate it, giving it +1 attack, which again, you don't want to give this +1. That's really high. And then 2, you can't fake it out because of Cover Cloak, right? And then if you pair this up with something like, for example, like a ghost type that has, for example, Flood Main with Speed Booster, all of a sudden you Icy Wind and just start nuking everything. And of course, Close Combat threatens a one-shot in Incin. So yeah, Galarian Zapdos, very, very good. The next one is Ogerpon-Teal. So I'm going to talk about this because it is the exact same thing that we just touched on. It's Covered Cloak, right, on top of Defiant. And then you pair that up with a really strong fighting move and superpower. That's essentially it. You can't fake it out. You give it +1 attack, and it will just one-shot you with this. It kind of forces the Terra. And even then, what is Incin doing, right? Like, if you go Terra, then yeah, great. You just, like, pop your Terra and you trade it a one-on-one, right? You know, he's going to, like, do so much damage with superpower that even if you do pick up the KO in return, you're just going to KO yourself from the Flare Blitz recoil, which I do not think is necessarily the best, right? But the next guy here is Urshi Single Strike, right? So Urshi Single Strike is another one we'll touch on quite a bit today, as this one, you know, as I said, against Flutter Main, has a very, very good matchup into the metagame, right? This is a Pokemon where with one, either its choice banded set can just straight up one-shot you with a close combat, or two, you know, with something like, for example, say like Focus Sash into close combat as well, you can go for the Detect and then fire off some close combats. And of course, one of the best things about the Urshifus is it doesn't matter how many times you lower their attack, Wicked Blow is just gonna crit. And yeah, it's very, very, very good into Incin. You can intimidate it, parting shot off it. It really doesn't matter. It's just going to sit there and spam Wicked Blows and just deal a lot of goddamn damage. But then the next guy here is actually Glimmora. Now, Glimmora is another one we'll probably touch on a little bit today. I do think the rock typing in general right now is just very, very good. And obviously this mon did just get a massive, you know, buff in Meteor Beam, right? Which does threaten a one-shot into Incineroar. But the other major thing that I do think Glimmora has going for it right now, especially against things like Incineroar, right, is when you look at Incineroar's kit, right? It goes Fake Out, right? It goes for Knockoff, and it goes for Flare Blitz. So not only do you, obviously resist the Flare Blitz, Incin really doesn't want to click any of these moves on you as a Glimmora, because the second you hit it, he gets Toxic Debris. What happens the second you get Toxic Debris down? Incineroar can't pivot around with things like Parting Shot paired up with its Intimidate, because all of a sudden, every time it switches in, it's taking Poison Chip. It's taking Poison Chip. All of a sudden, this mon that is meant to, sit there for a long time with its, its Citrus Berry and kind of pivot around, be annoying, all of a sudden it's just taking, 20-30% of chip that it didn't want to take. And then all of a sudden it just gets one shot by something like a Specs Flutter Main when it's like, damn, my Incin should never have gone down here, but the Poison Chip it Poison Chipped. But I guess also the final one we're going to talk about here for Incin is Ogerpon Cornerstone. Again, the rock typing just feels incredibly good right now. And even after, getting, hit by the Intimidate, Ivy Cudgel off Rock Ogerpon is just still really good. This is one with still a very, very good attack stat and a lot of speed. It's also just a great utility mon, right? Things like Follow Me, Spiky Shield. And yeah, Ivy Cudgel is just incredibly good because it's, literally is the best rock move in the game. So, speaking of Ogerpons, of course, we have Ogerpon-Wellspring, arguably right now the best Pokemon in the game. This is, I think without a doubt, the best support Pokemon in the game. It should be on almost every team. This mon is really damn good. But we're going to be looking at the Pokemon that are very good into it. And the first guy here is Iron Bundle. Again, this is another common, reoccurring mod now. I do think we have spoken about it at least once so far. Maybe I'm wrong looking at my notes here, but we're definitely going to talk about it again. Iron Bundle obviously has the ability to threaten this thing off with a freeze dry. And not to mention too, Ogerpon is a mon that is naturally pretty decently fast. Sometimes you'll see Ogerpons only run something like maybe 140 to like maybe 135. Other times you'll see him run something as simple as like Jolly 170 to make sure they outspeed things like Landorus and Carnot, right? Or just any base 100 in general. But this mon just says, hey, I don't care. I got boost energy. I'm the fastest Pokemon in the game with timid nature, and I'm just going to freeze dry you. I'm going to icy wind you, and you're going to have a bad time. It's just really freaking good. This mon is without a doubt one of the best counters into Ogerpon, because it is one of the few mons that can really threaten a one-shot onto it. Anyway, though, going back to, again, yet another reoccurring mon here. I'm going to try to get out of the way as fast as possible. It's Galarian Zapdos, right? I think this mon is only so high on all the lists because it just doesn't see much play, but it's also just really good. Again, Choice Scarf Brave Bird just puts so much pressure on Ogerpon. Like, there's not much it can really do. I'm pretty sure Terra Flying Choice Scarf Brave Bird just one-shots it even if it terrors, which is absolutely scary, right? And really, Ogerpon can't, like, threaten a one-shot back in return unless it just deals that much damage to itself with recoil. But yeah, Galarian Zapdos, man, it's freaking good. Then we have Gouging Fire, though. Essentially, Gouging Fire is very similar to what we were saying about Chien-Pao earlier, right? This is a mon that naturally, it basically, you can't Horn Leech off this one, right? If you Horn Leech off it, you're going to do absolutely nothing and threaten to burn on yourself. And even if you do end up opting to go for the, obviously the Ivy Cudgel, you're kind of really needing a crit to deal some damage because this mon is so damn bulky that if you're not invested, you do it 0. And again, you're always going to run the risk of the burn, right? Burning Bulwark is just so damn good. And yeah, it's incredible, man. Not to mention, this is a mon as well that does like to run something like Speed Booster plus Breaking Swipe. Something I also didn't actually mention for the Chien-Pao as well. But yeah, like Power Knight obviously doesn't want to hit this thing because of Burning Bulwark, but then it's going to run like, Booster Energy Speed and just start Breaking Swiping you, and it's just not a good time, man. But another reoccurring mon, I feel like these are really reoccurring. I promise as the list goes on, we will throw a bit more mons in there, but it's Urshifu-Dark. Urshifu-Dark essentially, it just pins Ogerpon, right? It's like, oh, you want to spike your shield? I don't care, we could blow. Oh, like, I Terra? Don't care, we could blow. I Follow Me? I don't care, we could blow. This one just says, Choice Band, Terra, Dark, we could blow. That's all it is, man. He's like, I'm just gonna nuke. Nuke are gonna nuke, boys. Yeah, that's basically Urshifu-Dark. It's probably the best anti-meta mon in the game right now. And then I guess finally, we'll actually touch on a new mon finally, and that's Landorus Therian form. Obviously, Lando T is a very, very good mon into Ogerpon. 1, Intimidate's just a really good ability into it. And 2, very similar to how the Scarf Urshifu's kind of deal with Ogerpon, or at least the Rapid Strike variant, is you just go Speed Booster and you just get a U-turn. This is one where it's like, hey, if you don't Terra, I'm going to deal like 60% to you. And if you do Terra, you just wasted your Terra as I've pivoted away. And then I'm going to come back in and intimidate you again later. Lando T, this is just a very good one right now, and I think it has a fantastic matchup into Ogerpon. While, obviously it doesn't necessarily tank a hit from it, obviously being able to outspeed it and spam out the Intimidates is very good. So we've spoken about the other bear enough. It's time to actually talk about the king of the bears, and that is Big Bad Urshifu. Now, in my opinion, one of the best mons right now into it is Volcarona. So very similar to, our good friend Fluttermane, Volcarona has a very, very solid matchup here. Why? Well, 1, Flame Body, right? Obviously, its ability here, into, Surging Strikes, which does hit you 3 times, essentially says, hey, chances are you're going to get burnt if you hit me. And number 2, obviously this mon is a fire type. It doesn't necessarily love the Urshifu-Rapid Strike, but you just fix that up with going for something like Terra Dragon. Now, obviously, if they lead something like Urshifu plus Fluttermane, you can be in a little bit of trouble, but of course, that's where the rest of the team comes into this, right? As I said before, though, against Fluttermane, this is a mon that kind of just wants to quiver dance up, right? You're naturally a lot faster than, Urshifu is. Granted, even if they are Choice Scarf, you're not normally fast enough at +1 because you do like to invest a lot more in your bulk. But as I said before, as long as you get set up enough, you just click Giga Drain and you get all your HP back. This is one that obviously it threatens the Flame Body, can tear it out of its weakness, and Giga Drain just basically puts you straight back to full HP and makes the matchup pretty damn easy. Because again, if you ever get the burn on the Urshifu, it just feels like a wasted slot on the board against Volcarona. Now, look, I beat this dead horse already. I'm actually disappointed in myself for putting it here so many times. It's Galarian Zapdos, boys. It's just the faster Choice Scarf Pokemon with Brave Bird. It can hit it for super effective damage. It can outspeed it. It's good. Moving on. So our next one here is actually Ogerpon-Teal Mask. Now, the reason I like Ogerpon-Teal Mask here is because Ogerpon-Teal Mask, basically its Terra Bullies gives it a +1 to its speed stat, right? And essentially, +1 speed says, hey, I don't even care if you're Choice Scarf Urshifu. I'm just always going to outspeed you because I'm always going to be like higher than 150 speed. Like it's probably always running like minimum 156. It loves running the Adamant Nature because of its Terra. And it just says, hey, I'm going to bonk. Just bonk, one shot, dead. I always outspeed. It doesn't matter what Terra you are. Like, unless you're like Terra Poison, which I don't think you should be Terra Poison on the, you know, the Water Urshi in particular. Ogerpon is just going to always outspeed you, and it's always going to bonk you. And it's honestly not a very good time. But moving on to, you know, another grass type here. It's Amoonguss. Finally, the Shroom is here. Obviously, Rocky Helmet Shroom is really, really good into this thing. With Regenerator, it becomes really dumb. And of course, Rage Powder is just Rage Powder, right? It says, hey, I'm just going to resist all your attacks and KO you. Even if I'm something like the Citrus Berry variant, it takes way too many hits for you to pick up a KO of me that I can kind of just, you know, make you, you know, just sit there and just not really do anything for about 3 to 4 turns. And it's, honestly, it's pretty freaking good. And then I guess finally, Glimmora here. This is a mon that, again, very, very similar to how I guess it works into Incineroar. One, it can threaten, you know, a lot of damage coming out of the Meteor Beam. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily want to hit, you know, a fighting type. But a lot of the time, Urshifus do really, really enjoy their Terra Water. And one of the best things about Glimmora is its, you know, defensive Terra typing, which is Terra Grass. Essentially, if you go Terra Grass, and they just, you know, fire off a Meteor Beam, pretty damn scary. But the other thing, too, with Urshifu-Rapid is you kind of have to, I guess, again, second-guess Surging Striking this mon. Because, again, Toxic Debris, right? If you just give it up, you know, give it all its layers, your mons in the back aren't going to have a good time. And if it, you know, if Urshi ever goes down, you know, you're kind of forced to pivot against Glimmora. Again, it just becomes really bad, man. And also with Meteor Beam stuff, like, all of a sudden, you know, Meteor Beam into Earth Power, it's KOing you. You know, Meteor Beam into Sludge Bomb, it's KOing you. It's doing a lot of damage. This mod is just, like, such a good anti-meta. And, like, Toxic Debris in a metagame where you've got things like Incineroar trying to cycle is just really damn good. So next up here is Long Neck Raikou. Now Long Neck Raikou is, you know, this is a mon that kind of likes to, you know, click its priority electric moves, and it kind of likes to set up Calm Minds. And the number one counter to it, or at least, you know, one of the best, is another mon that really likes to set up its Calm Minds, and that is Volcarona. Now Volcarona is just a very, very good matchup into, you know, Raging Bolt. Why? One, it's faster, and two, it's also a Calm Mind setter, and it just kind of says, hey, I'm just going to set up, you know, next to you. I'm always going to be faster. You can't really use your electric move on me. And I'm just going to start KOing your friends. It's just really, really good. It can tank hits from Raging Bolt. Again, it's super bulky. It gets the speed boost out of the, sorry, not Calm Mind. That's meant to be Quiver Dance. You get your Quiver Dances, and then, yeah, you just start pumping out damage, dude. It's just really good, man. It sets up on it. It can tank it for days, and it can kind of just take, you know, take out its partners. Yeah, it's pretty damn good. And of course, its natural terror as well is Dragon, which again just says like, hey, you can't really Thunderclap me ever. Like, it just feels pretty damn bad. Next though, Urshi Dark. Again, I feel like I beat this, you know, horse quite a bit. One, you can easily pin this mon, you know, Fake Out plus Urshi Dark is just going to pin Bolt and just really, you know, make it feel pretty damn bad. But also two, you're just a naturally faster mon with a faster priority move and Sucker Punch. It's like, hey, if you ever try to click Thunderclap, I'm a Sucker Punch you. You're going to do nothing, but it's like, okay, so now you kind of force like T-Bolt, Dragon Pulse. Now I'm just going to Wicked Blow and KO you. You know, Urshi Dark, it's really good into a lot of the top mons. There's a reason I keep talking about it. Next though, Big Bad Baxcalibur. This is a mod, I don't know if anyone caught my tournament run a couple weeks ago now. I didn't really talk about it much, but I was testing Snow in particular. And I think Baxcalibur is a mon that does have a fantastic matchup into a lot of the mons that are really damn good, especially in Snow. But basically, Baxcalibur into Raging Bolt, what does it do, right? Well, it's naturally faster because, you know, obviously you do run a bit more speed on your Baxcalibur, and you basically just say, hey, if you don't Terra, I'm going to Glavis Rush you. If you do Terra, I'm still going to Glavis Rush you. And then it's also like, hey, I'm like pretty bulky, you know, like my HP per def is pretty decent. I'm just going to tank Thunderclaps for days, and I can always just snipe you with an Ice Shard anyway. Obviously having 2 stabs really good into Raging Bolt, you know, is very, very good into it. And Glavis Rush, man, this mon, it just, like, look at this. This is stupid. This is stupid. This much attack coming off this good a move? Dumb. Dumb diddly boys. It should not deal that much goddamn damage. Then we have, I guess, like, this is kind of like a 2-for-1. It's the Landorus's. I'll put Lander Eye here just because I do think Lander Eye in particular is better into Raging Bolt as it's faster. But this is one that just basically says, hey, I got Life Orb, I got Earth Bow, and I got what's it called? Sludge Bomb. It's like, oh, you want to go Terra Electric? Doesn't matter, I'm going to Earth Power you. Oh, you're something like, you know, Terra Fairy? Doesn't matter, I'm going to Sludge Bomb you. Oh, you like Terra Grass? I'm going to Sludge Bomb you. It's like, oh, you like Terra Water, which is like the only other Terra it runs. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter which one I click. I'm going to 2-shot you anyway. Yeah, Landorus, it just has a really, really good matchup into Raging Bolt. Obviously, being a ground type, you can't really hit it with a priority move. And then, of course, you know, like, it's like whatever, right? You're never going to KO it with just 1 Dragon Pulse unless you're like +2 attack. But yeah, Landorus Incarnate, very good. Very similar stuff as well for, of course, Landorus Therian form. But the last one here, finally a new one on the list, and that's Roaring Moon. Now, this one was really, really interesting to me. I was actually kind of surprised to see Roaring Moon have so much success against Raging Bolt. But essentially, it's another dragon type that obviously can threaten things like Breaking Swipe, which deal quite a bit of damage. Of course, it also really likes to run knockoff as well, which is obviously fantastic into any non-booster energy set. And especially too, because Roaring Moon a lot of the time does really like to sit next to something like a Moongus. So, you know, going for like knockoff into, of course, Terra Grass is very, very strong. And of course, as well, knockoff plus acrobatic on a more offensive set next to something like a Moongus is also very good. Because one, if they're Terra Grass, right, then you can go Spore plus acrobatics. And if, you know, they're safety goggles, then you can go knockoff plus 4. It's just a very, very solid combo. Not to mention, it naturally resists Raging Bolt's Thunderclaps. It also has a very, very good special defense plus HP stat. This one's biggest issue is obviously its physical defense. But when you're up against something like Raging Bolt that really relies on its, you know, special attack plus its, you know, priority move in Thunderclap, something like, you know, Roaring Moon can be very, very good. Obviously, Roaring Moon doesn't want to eat Dracos or Dragon Pulses of this mon, but it does still have very, very good stats. And I do actually think on paper it has a very solid matchup into Raging Bolt. So next up here, we have the Fire Beast from Johto, and that is Entei. Now, Entei is a pretty interesting mon, because this is a mon I don't think a lot of people predicted to be really good. But it honestly just has a ridiculously good matchup into a lot of the top meta mons. But do you know what it doesn't have a good matchup into, boys? Lamora. That's right, boys. Lamora, you heard it here first. Like, why? Well, 1, it resists the fire moves. 2, it resists the extreme speed. 3, it can just Terra into like a grass type and kind of dodge the high horse powers. But also 4, you go Assault Vest, guess what? Doesn't matter. Meteor Beam, baby. I'm putting in a one-shot. I do actually think like Timid Max Glamora is really good because of like Entei, right? Because a lot of Enteis will run to around that 140 speed mark. Because a lot of the time they do also want to invest a lot in bulk as well. So sometimes they do go slower. And because of that, you can kind of force the Terra out of this one or just say, hey, I'm just going to one-shot you with a Meteor Beam. And of course, very similar to a lot of the mons we spoke about in the past. If Entei hits you, you're getting Toxic Debris. It's just really good. Entei can't, you know, really stop you from getting Toxic Debris up. Next one. It pains me to put it here again, Urshifu-Dark. I don't even know why Urshifu-Dark's here. Like, obviously, it does a lot of damage. Like, I have seen Banded Wicked Blows just one-shot even bulky Enteis. But, like, Sacred Fire, but, like, I don't know. Urshifu-Dark apparently is just him. Like, Urshifu-Dark's, like, win rate against all of these mons, or, like, these mons' win rates in particular against Urshifu-Dark, they were always, like, in the 20%. I don't remember exactly what it was for Entei, but it was, like, something like Entei had, like, a 28% win rate across 3 tournaments against Urshifu-Dark. And Urshifu-Dark is, like, the 12th most picked mon in the metagame right now. So, like, I don't know. Apparently, it's just really good into Entei. It's just the stats, boys. I'm sorry. I've said this for, like, every freaking mon. Anyway, we'll go over, though. It's the other Fire Dog, or the other Fire Beast, I guess. It's Hisuian Arcanine. Here's Hisuian Arcanine. Why Hisuian Arcanine, boys? Entei can't be intimidated. Entei's faster. Well, guess what? Hisuian Arcanine likes to play a lot more offensive than Entei does. I've said it in the previous video, but a Choice Banded Rock Slide will not kill it, but a Choice Banded Head Smash at -1 will kill it. It doesn't matter if you intimidate the Arcanine here, it just goes Head Smash. I've also spoken about it as well. The Clear Amulet set also is very, very good into it. Because again, Head Smash just one-shots Entei. It's pretty freaking good. Obviously, it kind of forces the Stomping Tantrum. It can't be burnt by Sacred Fire. Yeah, it's just pretty good. Then we have a funny one, Iron Bundle, actually popping up again here. As I said, Iron Bundle did actually have a really good matchup into a lot of these mons. I did actually drop it off a couple lists just because I wasn't necessarily super confident in putting it on a lot. Like, for example, Raging Bolt. I think it actually had, like, the second best win rate against Raging Bolt, which was kind of crazy to see, considering, like, one Thunderclap is going to remove it from the game. But yeah, anyway, obviously, into Entei, this is one that doesn't care about getting burnt. Obviously, naturally, its physical defense is pretty high, and because Entei isn't, you know, the biggest physical attacker, it can take the E-speeds pretty well. But it also just naturally runs Terra Ghost into the Chien-Pao stuff, which is obviously just always really, really good. And of course, you know, it's probably like the strongest water move, water type in the game in terms of just like firing off a Stab Hydro Pump, right? It's pretty good. 80% of the time, you're really going to threaten Enteis. And if Enteis also do go for something like Terra Grass, which is kind of picking up as one of its main defensive typings, the other one being Water as well, I think is also on the rise. Obviously, just Freeze Dry it, which is, yeah, obviously pretty freaking good. And then the final one, actually, this is one I feel like I've said a couple times now. It's Ogerpon Cornerstone. Again, this is a mon that I have kind of dropped off a few lists because I do think there were a couple rock types that were better. But again, one thing you've probably noticed a lot when talking about a lot of these top mons is there are a lot of rock type Pokemon that are up the top. Why? Because it just doesn't matter. Entei doesn't take Ivy Cudgels from this thing. Like, you got to remember, with the Mask Boost, this is a 120 base power, no drawback rock move that doesn't miss, coming off 120 base of physical attack. This mon does a lot of freaking damage, and not to mention, like, yeah, sure, it does want to get burnt, but it's just a follow me mon with a rock typing. Like, you can just go Terra, resist the fire move, you know, resist anything coming out of the Chien-Pao. It's just a good time. Like, Ogerpon Rock just has a good time. So, we're moving on to the back end here, and the first one is... Oh, that's not a move. Obviously, talking about Rillaboom here, guys. But once again, it's Volcarona, boys. Volcarona, once again, Flame Body versus these physical attackers, really good. All of, Rillaboom's attacks make contact. What else? It is a bug fire type. It 4x resists the bloody, the grass moves, right? What else? It likes Terra Dragon. Grass can't hit Terra Dragon. It's just really good. You can set up on this thing's face and always threaten a one-shot. Volcarona, just very, very good. Another really good one, another rock type we've been talking about quite a lot. And again, I hate myself for putting these mons on the list so many times. It's Glamora. Why? You just threaten it with Sludge Bomb, right? If it terrors, you threaten it with Meteor Beam, right? Guess what? It doesn't want to fake you out. It doesn't want to wood hammer you because Terra Grass hard walls basically anything this thing does. Sure, it can U-turn off you, but U-turn's doing like, what, 60%? You give it spikes, and then you have to then cycle back into the spikes, basically just defeating the purpose of grassy terrain, making it really bulky. Glamora's just really freaking good here, boys. Next one, another, mon that kind of likes to burn it. It's Gouging Fire. Once again, you can't hit it with the water move, sorry, the grass moves. You don't really want to U-turn off it. Essentially, threatening the burn on it is just really, really rough. Sure, you can go for the higher horsepower, but again, Gouging Fire really likes Terra Grass. What did we say about Terra Grass, boys? Grass moves don't want to hit grass. Ground coverage doesn't want to hit grass, so it leaves you with U-turn. If you U-turn any burning bulwarks, you're not going to have a good time. It also normally runs quite a bit more speed than you, and it runs something like Breaking Swiped. What's that mean? Just means you're not going to have a good time, man. Rillaboom doesn't want to get burnt, doesn't really ever want to threaten this one, doesn't want to be on the board at the same time as this. It's just not a great matchup, yeah. Moving on though, I do think Dragon types are really good here, and we're going to continue the Bax Caliber train. Bax is just good, man. Bax obviously normally pairs up a lot with, obviously, Alolan Ninetales. What's Alolan Ninetales do? It just gives this mon, the snow boost. Basically gets really, really high physical defense. It's great. Not to mention, you can run it faster than standard Rillaboom and outspeed its grassy, its grassy glides with Ice Shard. Glavis Rush into Ice Shard is always a very, very strong combo as well, because you can just nuke it. Doesn't matter if it goes Terra Fire. You threaten it a lot of damage. And then at that point as well, Ice Shard is just very, very good at picking up Rillabooms if they're ever low. And then the final mon here for Rillaboom is actually a mon I'm surprised hasn't shown up more here today, and that's Ogerpon-Fire. I think this mon has a really good matchup into the current metagame. Very similar to Volcarona and, of course, Gouging Fire here. You don't want to hit Ogre Fire here with the grass moves. It 4x resists you. It doesn't feel like a good time. And, of course, thanks to his grass typing as well, it doesn't really want to get hit by, it doesn't really care about high horsepower. And because it's a fire type as well, it doesn't really care about U-turn. And you just go bonk. Again, that's what Ogerpon does, boys. It bonks. I think it's really good into Rillaboom. It resists it. It threatens kills. It's just very solid. Next up is Big Torn here. And what does Tornadus hate? Tornadus hates going up against other Tailwind teams with really strong attackers. And I hate it, but it's Urshifu-Dark, boys. Urshifu-Dark has a really good win rate into Tornadus. I mean, look, it can one-shot it. If it goes Terra Dark, it doesn't matter. It one-shots it with Wicked Blow. If it protects, it one-shots it. It's good, boys. Like, you honestly have to lead this thing with Flutter main, but like, one of the other sets I think is like slept on right now is the Choice Scarf plus Terra Fairy set. Sorry, Terra Poison set. It's like, oh, you led Tornadus plus Flutter main. I'm just gonna Terra Fairy and just nuke one of your mons, and I don't care. It's really good, man. Again, carrying on from that, it's actually crazy because this is the first time this mon's appeared on the list, and I love it. It's Chi-Yu. Apparently, Chi-Yu just is really good into Tornadus, and I think the reason for it is it's another mon that really likes speed control, and it can threaten a lot more damage than Tornadus' partner can. Like, if you go, for example, Fish plus, Torn versus, like, Fluttermane Torn, yeah, Fluttermane can Dazzle and Gleam, but I'm just gonna, like, Specs Heatwave you. It's like, oh, yeah, you let it with, like, your, I don't know, your Urshifu-Rapid, who's not Choice Scarf. I don't care. We're gonna both Tailwind. I'm gonna KO your Tornadus. You're gonna kill my Fish, but my Fish is doing, like, 60% to your Urshifu. Like, it just does so much damage, man. It's a nuke. Like, it honestly is just really good into, like, these, like, the opposing Tailwind teams. It also obviously really helps out as well with, like, Side Spam stuff as well, which I do think is very good on, Tailwind teams as well. But yeah, it just kind of says, like, hey, I'm just going to out-trade you on the lead here. I'm going to threaten a one-shot on your Tornadus, and I'm also going to deal more damage than the Tornadus' ally does. And I guess speaking of a Pokemon that does the exact same thing, it's Golden Joe. Another one that really hasn't appeared too much on this list. But again, Golden Joe into Tornadus is really good because Tornadus, like, feels like it has to click this, right? A lot of the time, like, if it doesn't click this, it's clicking Bleak Windstorm. Golden goes like, hey, I dare you to click Bleak Windstorm. I'm just going to make it rain. Especially if it's like some, choice spec set with like, what's it called? Like Terra Steel. It's like, oh yeah, you have to go your own Terra Steel. But then it's like, you're tearing your Tornadus and it still gets two-shot anyway. It just feels awkward. Like, there isn't anything really, besides like Urshifu-Dark that wants to play next to a Tornadus into something like a Specs Golden Go. And yeah, it's just a bad time, man. Like, any mon that can kind of out-trade a Tornadus partner is just not good for Tornadus. Because if you have to click Tailwind and Golden Go clicks Make It Rain, it's like, damn, he just clicked 2 moves. Sure, I got Tailwind, but I lost both my mons. I didn't claim a kill. It just doesn't feel good. It's like, it's not good, man. I guess though, talking about mons that threaten Tornadus, boys, it's Glamora once again. This mon had an insane win rate against it. It basically just says, hey, let's trade. You get Tailwind, I get +1. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, my Dozo in the back? Yeah, he doesn't care. Like, we have the numbers advantage now. It's like 4 on 2 and I got a Dozo in the back. I don't care that you got Tailwind. I got a Dozo in the back, man. Yeah, dude, it nukes it, right? It says like, hey, I dare you to click your Terra. It's like, oh, okay, I clicked my Terra. It's like, well, you still can't touch me. I'm a rock type. You're clicking like, you know, flying type moves. I just click Earth Power. It's like, oh, like you've got some, you know, you got like some fancy Terra. It doesn't matter, Sludge Bomb. It's just a free +1 from Meteor Beam. And 2, like, the thing with Tornadus is a lot of the time, right? If you've got like, for example, a common Tornadus partner right now is Landorus Incarnate. You're like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna Terra Steel my Tornadus so it doesn't die to Meteor Beam. But then it just Meteor Beams the Landorus Incarnate and one-shots it. And it's like, okay, you've set up Tailwind and you've used your Terra Steel, and I'm now +1 and I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, that's it's just Glamora right now, boys. It's really good into a lot of these top mons. And I guess, you know, kind of piggybacking off Chi-Yu and Golden Go, probably should have changed this around. It was just the way the stats had it. It's Hisuian Arcanine. Obviously in Regulation E, Hisuian Arcanine was one of the best mons into Tornadus. Tornadus is a mon that, again, it doesn't like getting out-traded into, right? Tornadus wants to click Tailwind. It's like, okay, I've got my own Tornadus, I'm clicking Tailwind. It's like, you led Fluttermane, I led Arcanine. Okay, you Dazzling Gleam, you did like 30-40% to my Arcanine, you did, I don't know, like 60-70% to my Tornadus. Well, I just threatened a one-shot on both your mons. I'm banded Arcanine. My Rock Slide is gonna KO both your mons if you're not really bulky. And even then, you just gotta pray I miss. Like, Hisuian Arcanine just, like, there's a reason why in Regulation E, it was literally the best answer in, like, the Tornadus mirrors. Because it was like, if you led your own Hisuian Arcanine, what was beating it, right? It's like, oh yeah, like, you know, my Golden Go, it can, like, take a Rock Slide. Yeah, Golden Go can take a Rock Slide, but it can't take a Flare Blitz. Like, any mon that could, like, potentially take Rock Slides on lead couldn't take Flare Blitzes. And even things like, for example, like Landorus, which were pretty common into it. It's like, okay, yeah, we both just, like, dropped each other's, like, attack stat. It's like, okay, now I'm going to fire off a -1, you know, band of Flare Blitz into you. I'm also, like, Terra Grass, Terra Fairy, whatever. What are you going to do? I'm going to Flare Blitz you, right? I'm going to do a lot of damage to you. If you want, you can go Rock Slide, you can go the Stomping Tantrum. You're not going to do any damage, right? Because I can threaten the Terra here. And it's just, yeah, it's just really good into a lot of Tornadus mirrors, man. What can I say? And boys, the final mon we're going to be talking about here is Dragonite. Now, unfortunately, there is only one new mon for Dragonite. I do apologize. And look, we're going to piggyback off of what we were just saying. I did kind of refrain from saying it, but it's Hisuian Arcanine, boys. Why? Look, I said it with Chien-Pao. This mon, it tanks anything from this, and it threatens a one-shot. It forces the Terra. It doesn't feel good. It's just, it's good. I'm not going to say much more. It threatens the one-shot. It threatens a lot of damage. It's good. Hisuian Arcanine's good. Gouging Fire. Again, I said it with Chien-Pao. I've said it with a lot of these mons. It threatens the burn. It's really naturally bulky anyway. It can outspeed you with Booster plus Breaking Swipe and lower your attack anyway. Gouging Fire, it's just good. D-Knight doesn't want to get burnt. It doesn't want its attack stat lowered. You know, you can't intimidate D-Knight, sure, but you can Breaking Swipe it. It's not having a good time. The next one here, though, is Archaludon, Archaludon, whatever you want to call it. This one's obviously very good. Steel typing, obviously, is very, very nice into D-Knight. One of the main things I think Archaludon doesn't necessarily have going for it in general is Chien-Pao's Sacred Sword. But essentially, you're a Steel type with really good, you know, physical defense and stamina. Basically saying, hey, D-Knight, if you ever touch me, my defense is going up, which means you're going to do even less. And then, yeah, of course, you know, I've got like a Stab Draco Meteor that will just one-shot you if you ever dare. It's like, I can also go like Electro Shot in the rain and just like, you know, deal a lot of damage there too. Yeah, it's just really good. It's a Steel type, right? It naturally resists a lot of what D-Knight wants to go for. Sure, D-Knight can go for things like Stomping Tantrum, but again, if it ever gets up 1 or 2 stamina boost, they're not really doing that much damage. Your Fizz Def's already so naturally high. It's a good mod, man. Archaludon is really damn good. Then we have the two of the premier ice types, boys, and that's Big Bad Baxcalibur. So obviously Baxcalibur, you know, again, it's a dragon type. You know, it's faster. It's got Glaven's Rush, right? It's also an ice type. It's got Ice Shard. Yes, yeah, sure. You can go for, go for your E-Speed today. I'm pairing this up with Snow. I'm tanking it. I'm firing off an Ice Shard that can threaten a one-shot. Oh, shit. He can threaten a one-shot. I have to tear my D-Knight. Yeah, well, your D-Knight's next to a Chien-Pao Glaive Rush, just one-shotting you anyway. Yeah, Baxcalibur, it's good, man. If it locks into anything that isn't E-Speed, you're going to just pick it off with Ice Shard. If you do lock into E-Speed, most of the time it's like, hey, this defensive stat, you're getting a 50% boost to it. You're eating the doubler anyway, and you're just KOing. It's really solid. And as I said, look, 2 ice types, it wouldn't be a list without Iron Bundle, apparently. Similar to Chien-Pao stuff. Terraghost is honestly not bad. It forces a lot of mind games. If you're going like Sucker Punch plus E-Speed into an Iron Bundle, that doesn't feel good, especially when the Iron Bundle can easily just go for the Protect to scout out what you're doing. It's like, okay, let's see what the D-Knight locks into here. I'm protecting. Oh shit, he just like E-Speed plus Sucker Punch. That's okay. I'm fine. I can just swap into my Flutter main now, and I don't really care that much because I know you're locked into E-Speed, and Homeboy is not clicking, you know, Ice Spinner into an Iron Bundle. I resist it. It's not a good time, boys. And yeah, that's basically it. Also, like, you're threatening a big one-shot there too. Yeah, boys, anyway, look, that's it. I've been rambling on long enough. It's my first time, I guess, doing a video like this. I'm kind of interested to what you guys think. Obviously, I did a bit of research going into this video, and I'm also going to use that research too for the coming days. So if you are interested, stick around. I am obviously going to, you know, I have a lot more stats here, I guess. I just didn't want to sit here and give you even more because I've been here. Right now, my recording says 45 minutes. By the time I edit it down, hopefully it's closer to 35, 40. Yeah, look, I have a lot of stats here. I'm going to talk about stuff, you know, again, in the next couple of days with this information. You know, keep an eye out as well for like the, I guess the best anti-meta mons, because that is something I'm definitely going to touch on. One other thing though, I will mention here that I didn't actually say for any of these matchups. Obviously, I guess before I quickly get into that, keep in mind with these stats, these tournaments only had, you know, like say, I think there was like, the smallest one was like 97, the biggest one was like 130 or something. And when you've got a mon like, you know, Chien-Pao, which is the second most used one in the game, but it's got like 40 uses, stats can be a little skewed. That is why I kind of tried to add up 3 different events. So do keep that in mind. Obviously, you know, when you like, for example, like something like Urshifu-Rapid Strike, you might be like, hey, why is Ogerpon-Water not on the list? Obviously, Ogerpon-Water is like the best counter to it. It's because they're both on so many teams that the win rate gets forced more closer to 50-50. And because of that, you know, Ogerpon-Water just doesn't appear as like, hey, Urshifu-Rapid has like a 20% win rate against it. It's like, nah, they played against each other like 30 odd times. And because of that, you know, yeah, it's in Ogerpon's favor, but maybe Ogerpon wins 60-40. So that's something I wanted to add. And also to one other core in particular I didn't touch on. I thought about adding it, but it's more a core of like 2 to 3 mons. And that is the Trick Room plus Blood Moon Ursaluna, or just even some of them were regular Ursaluna. A lot of these matchups were really, really bad into Blood Moon Ursaluna in particular. Like, there are a lot of these top mons where it was just like Blood Moon Ursaluna is like 20% win rate against it. 20%, 30%. Like, it just beat so many of the top mons. It's like, oh, Flutterman, yeah, you're just dead to my Blood Moon, right? Chien-Pao, it's like, oh, if I've got my Giraffe alive, I'm just double, you know, I'm just like Hyper Voice, Dazzling Gleam, or Hyper Voice, you know, like Terra Normal or Hyper Voice with Life Orb, Helping Hand, pumping through. It's like, oh, Ogerpon-Water, you're terroring to live this? Yeah, like, you're really not. Like, I'm Helping Hand, Terra Normal, Life Orb, just Blood Mooning you right now. It's good. And again, things like Urshifu-Rapid, even like Bolt, it's like, yeah, you can't Thunderclap me. I'm just going to deal massive damage with Earth Power. It's just Blood Moon Ursaluna is really good, boys. Keep an eye on that as well. Look, I've rambled on long enough. This outro has been like 3 or 4 minutes at this point. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. Of course, if you could like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It means the world to me. If you made it to the end of the video and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Come on, help me out. But yeah, catch you in the next one. Peace.